Hello. So, as you can see, usual stuff, but I talked about Britney's book in a previous video, and it got me thinking. You know when you start picking apart things and going for it? Hi, I'm Will, I'm the host of the Bald Book Geek, you know what to do. And I started picking apart everything in a way that even I am shocked about. So, before we get on with this, here is a word from my sponsor. This video is brought to you by Temu for all your geeky needs, and unlike other certain shipping sites from China, you actually get what you ordered at a really good price. Use this code or click the link down below. There is some great D&D stuff, geeky stuff, Christmas stuff, you name it, you can find it. I have not been disappointed by Temu, which is rare. So I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get on with the video. I kind of went far deeper into Britney's book than I thought possible. Here I am. My music tastes go from you need to try this to please don't judge me. Britney is not really on my musical radar outside of a handful of songs. And one song in particular has been recontextualized in a way that now makes so much more sense. It's always a weird one when I look back on that era of pop music. Everything was very squeaky clean, very manufactured. You know, someone wearing a crop top was considered controversial. Now you have people in metal G-strings writhing around singing WAP, lip syncing to WAP. You know, it's a very different landscape of pop, of music, and Britney, I think, was the prime example of that. Now I'm going to go off from that section, just to focus on key points, the Justin Timberlake thing. Coming into this book, I think Justin Timberlake should say something at this point, but coming into this, it recontextualizes so much of what happened after that god-awful interview with Diane Sawyer. Whoever pushed her, Diane Sawyer is an absolutely atrocious human being, and any celebrity interview with Diane Sawyer is going to be trash. She is, let's be honest. I watched all these interviews, I watched this stuff, and it was very interesting watching her, Britney, get blamed for relationships, the breakdown. It was interesting to see, because it's like she was immediately the bad girl. She was immediately the one that was thrown under the bus. Then the video to Cry Me a River happened. It recontextualized Britney's song Everytime. She's not a songwriter. She admits that herself. She's not really a songwriter. But that song, there was something about it, and I always said it sounded like a nursery rhyme, and the sort of theory is that it's about the termination that she went through and the guilt that she suffered from that. And now, the imagery in the video and everything now makes so much more sense. I never really understood the video, but I always liked the song. It was interesting. The sort of chaotic fallout of that was bizarre to witness. You know, she was obviously had a fling with Colin Farrell and allegedly Fred Durst and other people, and there was a lot of, her wild behaviour. And all I'm thinking is, if you knew me in my late teens and early 20s, yeah. Like, growing up in a spotlight cannot be healthy, because you are forever that person to when people found you. And I said this in the previous video, that you are forever trapped in that image they found you, depending on what era you were found by a fan. Some people will forever view Britney Spears in a schoolgirl outfit or a red cat suit, or writhing around with a snake on the MTV Awards. Some people think of her as a circus ringleader, other people think of Give Me More in the VMAs. It cannot be healthy to be in that environment, to be hot-housed that way, because so many people must be out to get you. Then you move forward in the book, and it talks about her marriage to K-Fed, the SoundCloud rapper. I watched his performance. That's embarrassing. I actually watched it. It's actually embarrassing. It's bad. It's bad. And What I found very interesting, though, especially in the book, she goes into her relationship with him. She was looking for someone that just made her feel human. She also talked about her 53 hour and old marriage, and so on. And she was looking for someone to make her feel good. And again, she was forced into the position of being the bad girl. She was forced into filing for divorce. Allegedly, he wasn't going to do it, although he wanted it done. And that whole thing. And then she had to pay his legal fees and like the whole list of stuff. And, you know, he got his check out of it. Let's be honest, he got his check out of it. She talks about pregnancy. She talks about the effect on her hormones and everything. And it's fascinating because it's a very blunt book, but it goes into that psychology in a very human way. Not in a super deep way, but in a human way. And it moves through into the conservatorship. And this is the bit where it gets interesting. It's not a huge part of the book, but it's a part of the book that's very important. So, the conservatorship was meant to be temporary. And conservatorships are usually used for people with dementia in the States. We don't really have something here. We have different levels of power of attorney. But effectively, she became a non-human being. And that I found bizarre. The thought of that is strange. She was forced to go on the road. She was forced to do this. She was forced to do that. And she didn't want to do it. And she sacrificed her freedom so she could spend time with her children. It must be a horrendous situation. She also goes into the custody battle with K-Fed and the breakdown. And I remember this. Like, my own perspective on the Britney thing is, I remember her getting chased around LA by paparazzi. I remember the TMZ articles. I remember that list of stuff that went down and what happened. I remember it as an onlooker and how the press portrayed it. Thank God for archive.com. Rereading those articles is fascinating because I wonder how many people actually knew versus how many people were just saying it for clicks. And this is long before social media as we know it, really. Facebook was around, but there wasn't like a direct Instagram or Twitter feed, if you want the honest truth on that one. I remember the shaving head and how shocked people were. I remember the paparazzi with the milkshakes and the umbrellas. I remember it all. I remember her getting dragged out of her house on a gurney. I remember the MTV performance. I remember all of this stuff that went down in that thing. And I know I'm getting the timeline wrong here. And speaking as someone who has suffered and does suffer with mental health problems, depression sucks, is depression will do stupid things to your brain, and you are looking for something that fills that void. You're looking to feel something, and you kind of crash down. And from what I talked in depth with friends who suffered postpartum/postnatal depression, and it's very interesting how similar experiences have been and are. This book left a mark on me, one that I didn't think it would, because there was a lot of stuff in that book that rang extremely true, and it felt it felt sad almost reading these parts, because you're seeing it from the perspective from behind the closed door. It goes into the sort of stuff that her brother pulled, and it definitely throws her sister under the bus, and I don't mean that in an insulting way, I mean that in a good way. I might read Jamie Lynn's book just to see what everyone is talking about now. Her father obviously is a very controlling man, and it shows within the context of this book. She had absolutely no freedom. What I find disconnecting about the whole thing is that she was well enough to go on stage and do little acting gigs and all of this stuff, but she wasn't well enough to buy herself a Starbucks coffee. She had to ask permission. What she ate was controlled. What she drank was controlled. She was stripped of dignity. She was stripped of her amendment rights as well, which I find absolutely bizarre. the US Amendment, and that's a whole thing, and that's a video in itself. But, you know, you see Britney as this impeccable pop star, and I remember when Womanizer came out, and I looked back on that, and it was bright, happy Britney. The dark hair was gone. She was the blonde Britney that we all remembered. And I see a lot of stuff on that time, and I see a lot of stuff now where people go, why can't she be the Britney that we all love and knew? We didn't know her. We knew a curated image that was created by people around her, that was controlled in an extremely malicious and very dark way. We didn't know who she was. You look back on those interviews and there was always something holding her back. It's very intelligent, the way she handles a lot of the questions, by the way. I'm actually very impressed there. But I don't think we know her, and I don't think she knows who she is. Because from a very young age, she's been performing. And that's the disconnect. And we are so used to seeing celebrity through this filtered lens. Britney, for example. You know, perfect, shiny, happy Britney. And then breakdown, she's the bad girl. She's the one in the wrong. She's the one fighting for custody of her children. Because, you know, apparently drugs and alcohol and all of this stuff. It's funny how when that curated image breaks and we get a different narrative, especially from press and media and celebrity, it's strange to witness. I will pick on a friend of mine. I won't say his name, but he's a touring musical artist. He appeared on the X Factor in the UK and won, by the way. We had a conversation a few months ago, and we were laughing about a tabloid piece. Me, him, and another friend were sitting at a cafe in London. I go in to get something else, because I needed to use the restroom or something stupid. And there's a photograph of my friend, my female friend, from behind, and him having a coffee. And he is seen with the whole tabloid thing was this person meeting redhead in cafe. Who is the redhead? You know, it was very brief, but it wasn't at the Britney level. But it was brief enough to go, never believe anything you read about celebrity, be it from their own mouths or especially the tabloids. I think people are more press aware now. I think we're more aware because the filter between celebrity and the audience has broken a lot. Madonna is a prime example of that with TikTok and Instagram. And Britney is also a prime example of that because it is not a curated celebrity image. She is using filters because the filters break every now and then. She is using some type of AI makeup filter in a lot of her videos. But she is... that celebrity PR curated imagery is gone, and we're suddenly left with who she is, and people are either reacting and freaking out or not really understanding that this is not how celebrity works in the modern age. Ariana Grande, not a singer that's on my radar. I cannot stand her voice, but you know, she's aging, she's getting older, and people are like, she looks terrible. Because you're seeing someone who is human, you're seeing a human being that isn't airbrushed and photoshopped. Now, going back to Britney, I remember a lot of the performances, or a lot of headlines, lip syncing, she's not dancing, she can't dance anymore, all of this stuff, and the whole list of things. And what I find fascinating about it is that she didn't want to be there. So why would she give her all if she doesn't want to be on stage? Can we ask that question? Can we, would you, if you don't want to be somewhere, do you give your all? I mean, the alleged missing millions of her fortune as well, and that's allegedly. But there were obviously a lot of people making a lot of money out of her. And it's a very bizarre disconnect. Again, because you see a pop star on stage not really giving their all. And now I think we know why. This is my theory, by the way. You can tell when someone doesn't want to be on a job or doing something. Britney, as an entertainer, at one point was untouchable. And now she's just going through the motions. And you can see that. I also find it interesting that she rarely... I'm sure, I know how mics and sound engineering works. Even rock acts use backing tracks and extra instrumentals and extra vocals played in now and then. Country acts, rock acts, pop acts, you name it. There's always some level of digital tomfoolery between the stage and what you're hearing. Doesn't matter what kind of concert you're going to. And it's interesting because I got dragged to her circus tour by a friend, and it was a good show. I want to say that. I don't like in the round concerts, but I got dragged there. And actually, there was definitely moments where her voice was there. Her vocals were in the mix. And you could hear them. And it was very distinctive because her actual singing voice is very different to what you hear on the record, especially now with auto-tune and pitch correction. Her voice is deeper, huskier tone. It's almost a country voice. The best way to describe her vocals, her real voice. If you listen to those stripped-back demos on YouTube, yes, I've deep dived into this in a way that I never thought would be possible. But progressively, her own vocals in the track got turned down, and you can always do a tell for singers that are either using a lot of tracks or lip syncing. They don't have an in-ear monitor in. So if a singer doesn't have in-ears in, and in fairness, some of them are invisible, some of them are not, that's usually a sign they're not singing because they can't really hear themselves on stage. I've seen my friend put together his shows and things like that over the years, and it's like you hear the cues, you hear the lyrics cues, there's stuff played to you, so you know where you are and what you're doing. The interesting thing about this book is I think it doesn't just break the idea of celebrity, breaks that mirror. It also destroys that enigma. Celebrity as a whole is, like I said, a curated image. We don't see people at their worst or at their best. We see people in this curated, smiley, look at me, photoshopped image. And suddenly that's gone. And that's the difference. I mean, I looked back at some of the interviews Britney gave during the conservatorship, and what I find really fascinating about them is they're all very safe questions. So obviously her people are saying what she can be asked, and she seems very disconnected from them. Like singers at award shows and other things. Like there's a few memes of Britney reacting, and she seems disconnected. She doesn't want to be there. She's smiling. She's going through the motion. She's doing her thing, and that's it. There is no, that's it. It's just what it is. It's, hi, I'm at work today. How are you doing? And I think we've all coasted through days at work and with people, especially if we're not happy. I'm very good at putting on a smiley face and being that person. I think we all do. We all wear a suit of armour. It's also, and I say this, a lot of her contemporaries around the same time, and probably even newer celebrities, have their own horror stories. It's not a... I don't think I think a lot of her story is unique, the conservatorship and things like that, but I think some of the stuff is far more common than we care to admit. I think celebrity as a whole is quite broken, and there's this weird thing of, I'll pick on X Factor. A celebrity that makes a good television host is not a celebrity that's going to make a good pop star. X Factor is all about the sob story. American Idol is the same. All of these kind of reality pop shows they're about the sob story. They're about personality. They're about backstories. But a pop star or a singer, we don't know a huge much about them. Some of the best people on the planet, we know only snippets. And the sob story and the performances, all of this stuff, it's all very artificial, very generated. And it's all designed for television, not a long-term career. So people have to remember that celebrity is an illusion. What we see is not completely the truth, or a version of it. Case in point, Britney. Britney was this very veiled celebrity. We didn't know a huge amount about her. She was always this relatable, happy girl that went up on stage and sang and came back off. I even watched through some of her old concerts versus the new ones, and I genuinely don't believe the knee injury is the reason she wasn't dancing. Like I said, I think she just didn't want to be there. She went through the motions and just did the bare minimum. Those quiet little acts of rebellion, being told how to look, being told that you're too fat, being told that you're this, being told that you're that, being told how to appear to people constantly, must drive you crazy. And that's also a thing. Mental health treatment is fundamentally broken in varying countries around the world. The Western world is my main experience, and through my own experiences in the UK, trying to get help for mental health is notoriously difficult. It's ridiculous. And when you do get help, it's not the right help. And then you have to try this medication and that medication. And then you're doing this and doing that. It doesn't... And I know through family and friends in the States that it like state by state, depending on where you go, there is... mental health care is not top of the bill of things that are getting funded, to say the least on the subject. And I ended up going private for my issues in my 20s. And yes, that cost a lot of money. But I went private, and I still go private for most of my medical stuff outside of surgery. But yeah, I have private medical insurance. Long story. So what I found through reading this is looking into California mental health laws. My God, they're so broken. They're so all over the place. They're so convoluted that, and if you're in a conservatorship, a person can sign a form and say, this person is mentally unwell and they need rehab. For what? It doesn't matter. It's really such a convoluted system with so many very easily abusable loopholes that they need to refer California as a horrible place, especially Los Angeles, and San Francisco, two cities I once used to enjoy. But the actual everything that happened honestly violates basic human rights. It violated her amendment rights. It violated everything. It violated a person's body, mind, and so on. Again, she was well enough to tour, she was well enough to do a Vegas residency, but she wasn't well enough to buy herself a coffee, have say in her medical stuff, including contraceptives, and she wasn't well enough to change her set list of her own tour or change a dance move. There is something majorly wrong here. And now it all makes sense. And I think people overreact to a lot of her social media because I think she's somewhat trolling us all a little bit. And I don't mean that as an insult, by the way. Like the knife thing was a complete overreaction. They are props. I recognize those knives. You can actually get prop knives identical to that here. You couldn't cut butter with them. Could probably hit someone with them, but probably they're not real. But the overall take that I've got is that I just read this book not expecting much, expecting titillation and everything. But it's left me asking much bigger questions on mental health in the state of California. It's left me actually in general, mental health care in general, not just in the state of California, around the world, Western countries. Why is it just seems everything that happened was so contrived and so planned that it just was this dark void of mess and chaos and all of this stuff. I think we're in a situation where you have a woman who is now in her 40s, who is ever perceived as a child, infantilized by the people around her and herself somewhat, but she talks about that in depth. But also a woman who has been controlled, had her freedom, her rights, her dignity taken away. And I am sure there are celebrities out there who will tell stories that are as bad, that are similar, but we'll never hear them. When you look at it all, Britney, I think, is damaged. But I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean that in a, wouldn't you be after this stuff has happened to you? Having everything taken away from you, stripped away from you. Not allowed to be human, not allowed to function. Like, this book has left me asking a hell of a lot of questions about the whole thing. And I do wonder what's next for her. Do I think she can heal? Yes. Do I think it's going to take a long time? Yes. Do I think we'll ever see her on stage again? No. I think her passion and her love for what she did is gone. And I think that's a tragedy in itself. It might not have been my type of music, but she obviously enjoyed doing it. And to have something you love destroyed by the people around you is terrible. It's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Personal experience. I think Britney has maybe opened a floodgate. I think Britney has done a hell of a lot of good. But we have to remember there's a human there. A human who is processing and dealing with trauma. A human that is as vulnerable and as damaged as anyone else who has dealt with trauma. I didn't expect to come out of her book and think, oh, this is a massive opus or this and that. And I think a lot of critics are reading it wrong. A lot of people saying it's the big feminine opus, the feminist opus. It's not. It's an exercise of trauma and putting that record straight. And ultimately, I wonder what will happen next. And I'm going to leave this video and say, one of my first concerts was a Britney Spears concert. It was the Oops, I Did It Again tour. I'd seen S Club 7, I'd seen Steps, and then I got taken to the Oops, I Did It Again tour. I still have the program. I have an autograph program. There is a picture of me and Britney Spears. Together. I got to meet her as a kid. And now looking back on that, she was trying so hard to please everyone that maybe she should have pleased herself. Maybe I think she wanted to make other people happy and put her own happiness aside. It's always interesting when you're a people pleaser. And again, that's not an insult. That's a lot of things. But it's not an insult because of what she does. So, I know this is a long video. I will talk to you guys later, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Bye.